Hello and welcome to the building of this Tony Ray Tiger Moth. In today's video, which I believe is number 13, I'm going to actually construct or bolt together the undercarriage. And in doing so, I'm going to explain a couple of changes that I've made to the design and the logic behind those changes. If you've enjoyed this video by the end of it and you haven't already seen the previous ones, why not dip into the playlist which I've included in the description. So get yourself a favourite tipple in hand and sit down and relax and enjoy this build. Let's get started. Right then folks, here we go. I'm about to start putting this together. I've already had a look at the instructions which are online. And there are a couple of things I think I'm going to do slightly differently, and I'll explain why when I get to them. Well, let's get started. Let's start putting it together and see how it goes. Okay then, I've got the component parts here, and I've already decided that there's a couple of changes need to be made, and I'll explain why in a second. I have the instructions here online, which I can refer to, and then I can go along and make it up. But as I've thought it through, there's a couple of things I'm not quite happy with the sequence. So the first thing I have to do is, hope you can see that, is to bend that over which makes the U-shape part. So that's ready. Now there's a top hat, hope you can see that, top hat, and then there's a part that slides over it, which I'll put on now, hopefully you can see. Okay, and then the idea is that that fits into there. But look, quite frankly, that's hopeless. Now, the alternative is I make a new top hat, bush, but as this comes with the kit, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to put some solder around there, sweat some solder on, put it on there, and then apply a bit of heat so that it becomes bound to here. I'm not happy with that at all. I could just nip it with a pair of pliers and nip it in, but that's hardly a proper way to approach it. I'm going to try the soldering approach first. If that doesn't work, I'll be making a new top hat. But as this is what you get with a kit, I think this is probably the best solution that I'm going to come up with. I could do with a bigger soldering iron than I have, because Big Bertha went back to Jeff, who owns it. He's using it for a job. How dare he? Never mind. I'll see if I can get enough heat with a soldering iron to do this. If not, I can resort to a blowtorch to put a bit of heat on here. So I'm going to get this soldered on, and then the sequence for attaching everything I'm going to do slightly differently, I think. Okay, let's get ready to apply some heat. Okay, I've decided not to even waste any time with the soldering. I'm going straight for the blowtorch. So I'm going to apply a little bit of flux around here to bind the top hat to the little part, apply a bit of heat, and then put some solder on it, then put it into the tube. So here goes. Okay, that's applied. Now, what I'm going to do is put a bit of flux on the inside of the tube, and hopefully, with the application of a bit of heat, well, that's already going to be a nip and fit. because there's a fillet round the edge there. So let's try again. Helps if you've got asbestos fingers, doesn't it? Right. Let's see if this has worked. Whoop. I know it's hot. And hopefully that'll stop everything shifting around. So let's see if my theory works. I've either come up with an ingenious solution or I've totally cocked it up. We'll sharp find out. Okay, let that cool down. Come back when it has and I'll tell you how it's gone. Well, that's solved. That's now soldered on and that bush is going nowhere. Much happier with that than the rattling fit that we had before. Okay, let's have a look at the next sequence that I'm going to do slightly out of kilter from the diagram. So the next part of the process involves this studding. Hope you can see it there. This studding sliding in and out here, but to stop it falling out, you need some sort of stop on the end. And it suggests wrapping some Kevlar thread and super gluing round just to act as a stop. There's no real force on it in that position, it's just to stop the thing falling out. So I'm going to bind it on before I start putting anything else on it. It shows it the opposite way around. Shows it made up like that. So you make these up and then push the bit of pressure on and put the tape on. To me that seems crazy. So we'll try it the other way around and see if I've got this right. Here goes, folks. So I just need to, I got some of this stuff specially. I've got cobbler's thread, would have probably done the same thing. But I thought it's handy to have, you know, why not? I'll probably never use it all. So a little bit of CA to start it off. And I'm not sure exactly at the moment how much I need to apply to get it to act as a stop. I'm bound to have stuck my fingers to this, always do. Yeah, there we go, there we go. And I simply need to wrap the Kevlar round. Bit of a mess that, but never mind. Put a bit of tape on. Put that on, bit of CA. Then cut that off. Now obviously that won't, I've got the other one here, that won't go through, but it'll fall down the tube. Now I should be able to just rattle this down. You know what I've done there, I've gone a little bit too over the top with that and it's too much. Oh no, it's the rag, there's a rag. Right, there's a rag on the top here from the hole being drilled, so I need to clean that out first so I can get it down. Then we'll try again. So there you go, after a bit of rattling, that's now through. So I can put the spring on. And then obviously it's a case of putting the nut on and the rest under pressure, but I think that's better than trying to do it the other way around. So I'll get the swear box out and I'll start doing that, and then we'll come back and see how the whole assembly comes together. Seems like a good deal, doesn't it? Right, that's how it goes together now. I think that's a more logical approach to doing this. But what I will do is I'll take that apart again, and I'm going to put some thread lock on the end of these because we don't want it come to drift. And because it's an IC engine, it's going to vibrate the whole plane and frame a lot more than it would if it was electric. And experience has shown me that sometimes this lock can work loose. I had a VQ, or I still have a VQ Tiger Moth, and I threw away the undercarriage and built my own. Not quite as elegant as this, but very similar. And I found that you really do have to Loctite all the nuts and bolts together to make it work. So I'll get that done, and then I'll do the other leg, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Right, this is some Loctite 638, which is the more permanent Loctite rather than a thread lock, because I don't want these to come apart. I'm just going to apply a little bit with a cocktail stick. Thread that on. Put the next bit on. Apply some more. It is fiddly, I wouldn't deny that, but it's satisfying. I started off being interested in any sort of modelling as a child with plasticine, Play-Doh, Lego, and then Meccano, and Meccano was a revelation to me. I loved it. I loved bolting things together, and that's exactly what this feels like, which is great. Right, it's taken now. One oleo type leg, sprung loaded. Right, I've just got to repeat that with the other one. You don't need to see that, obviously. And then we'll go to the next stage. The sprung part of the legs are done, and there are 4 pieces of aluminium tubing here. These are steel, 4 bits of aluminium tubing and 2 longer bits which need to have the ends flattened and a 2mm hole drilled through them. And the best way to do that is to put them in a smooth jaw vise and crush them, same way as I did with the cabanes. But you need to be careful, because 2 of these need to have these small parts slid on before you do that, because obviously if you flatten the ends you'll not get these on. So I'll slide 2 on and then get these flattened and drilled, and then we'll start actually putting the whole thing together. There you go, like that. So they need to be flattened at the ends, drilled out, and then it's basically a construction process along with these flat bits of steel which need to be bent up to shape. So let's get cracking. Well, there'd be no fun in it if I'd got it right first time. Trying to be clever soldering these on, what I didn't think about, the hole in this little piece here needs to line up with the holes on the end of the steel tube. So just be aware of that. If you're going to solder it or glue it in some way, you need to be aware of that, because if you don't, you're going to be in a world of pain later on, I think. Anyway, back to the construction. Well, there you go. That's it screwed together. You haven't missed anything apart from a little bit of profanity, which probably would have got the video demonetized. No, seriously. It's just a little bit fiddly. Nothing's tightened up. Nothing's been Loctited. It's fairly self-evident which way everything goes. So this is the main undercarriage. And again, it starts to become surprisingly rigid once you start screwing things together, even though they're not locked up. These are the rear legs, and the struts rather, and these are the forward ones. Now, it's my intention to move everything forward by about 1/4 of an inch. I think that'll just assist and prevent the nose over tendency that one gets. and I'm flying off grass, and even when it's cut nice and short, it's not the same as flying off asphalt or tarmac. So the next thing I'm going to do, obviously I've threaded these in, they're not Loctited in, they need to be done. The next thing to do is actually to, thought I'd be a bit tighter than that. The next thing to do is to mark everything off on the fuselage, and that's what I'll show you next. Right, I'm going to offer up to the fuselage the undercarriage as it is, and it'll need a little bit of fine tuning, and this is by no means the final location for it, because it'll have to come off anyway to cover the model. But what I have done is I've beefed up these areas underneath with additional ply. Here, I think I need to put a bit more, a little bit further forward actually with this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle the undercarriage forward between a quarter and an eighth of an inch. That's the location as shown on the plan. And I think I can get forward, I can get away with shuffling it a little bit further forward and still keeping the feel of the model. So let's have a look. As it is, I think we're talking about approximately here would be further forward. I'm going to just take get a hole in there. I'll get that screwed on. Just bear with me, sorry about stepping in front there. I'm not altogether going to stick with these screws either. I think they're a little bit fine for what, well, my landings are like anyway. I don't know about other people, but I think the strength in this actually is in the number of fixing points. So perhaps I'm just being a little bit too pessimistic. That's going in. You're probably looking at the back of my arm here. So that's that one. And that would take that to approximately there. I'll screw the other side on and get a few more screws in, then we'll have a look at what it looks like. Well, here we have it then, folks. That's the undercarriage completed, although it's not all locked up and had thread lock on, etc., because it'll need to come off to be cut for the model to be covered, and also for painting. The suspension works. There's actually a give in that. My first impressions have been that it seems to be very delicate, but once you put all the screws in and all the attachment points have been beefed up a little with extra plywood, it seems to be quite robust. Only time will tell. In addition to the main undercarriage, I've also done the tail wheel. I had considered putting a skid on, but I've gone with the kit parts. I've added some plywood inserts to allow you to screw in to the surface. Without them, you're screwing into balsa, which wouldn't last. Obviously, everything needs to come off to be for the model to be covered. How that model's covered, I haven't decided yet. But anyway, I've got the wings to do first, and being a biplane, there are 4 of them. So I'm looking forward to that. That's next week's task. If you've got thus far, please give it a thumbs up. You deserve a thumbs up yourself for persevering with it. But there we go. I'm really pleased with the look of the model. It's got some fine lines to it, which I really like. Take care, folks. Let's get creative. Bye now.